Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning, we will be in 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 18 through chapter 6, verse 81. So, buckle up. I'm going to hear some fantastic pronunciation of ancient Hebrew names this morning. Sarcasm. The Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had 44,760 men in their combined armies, warriors who carried shields and swords, were equipped with bows, and were trained for war. They attacked the Hagrites, Jeter, Naphish, and Nodab. They received divine help in fighting them, and the Hagrites and all their allies were handed over to them. They cried out to God during their battle. He responded to their prayers because they trusted in him. They seized the Hagrites' animals, including 50,000 camels, 250,000 sheep, and 2,000 donkeys. They also took captive 100,000 people. Because God fought for them, they killed many of the enemy. They dispossessed the Hagrites and lived in their land until the exile. The half-tribe of Manasseh settled in the land from Bashan as far as Baal Hermon, Senir, and Mount Hermon. They grew in number. These were the leaders of their families: Epher, Ishi, Eliel, Azrael, Jeremiah, Hodaviah, and Jadiel. They were skilled warriors, men of reputation, and leaders of their families. But they were unfaithful to the God of their ancestors, and worshipped instead the gods of the native peoples whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up King Pul of Assyria, that is, King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. And he carried away the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and took them to Hala, Habor, Hara, and the river of Gozan, where they remain to this very day. The sons of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Kohath: Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The children of Amram: Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. These sons of Aaron: Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Eleazar was the father of Phinehas, and Phinehas was the father of Abishua. Abishua was the father of Buki, and Buki was the father of Uzi. Uzi was the father of Zerahiah, and Zerahiah was the father of Marioth. Marioth was the father of Amariah, and Amariah was the father of Ahitub. Ahitub was the father of Zadok, and Zadok was the father of Ahimaaz. Ahimaaz was the father of Azariah, and Azariah was the father of Johanan. Johanan was the father of Azariah, who served as a priest in the temple Solomon built in Jerusalem. Azariah was the father of Amariah. Amariah was the father of Ahitub. Ahitub was the father of Zadok, and Zadok was the father of Shallum. Shallum was the father of Hilkiah, and Hilkiah was the father of Azariah. Azariah was the father of Sariah, and Sariah was the father of Jehozadak. Jehozadak went into exile when the Lord sent the people of Judah and Jerusalem into exile by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. The sons of Levi: Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. These are the names of the sons of Gershom: Libni and Shimei. The sons of Kohath: Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The sons of Merari: Mali and Mushi. These are the clans of the Levites by their families. To Gershom, his son Libni, his son Jahath, his son Zimmah, his son Joah, his son Iddo, his son Zerah, and his son Jeatherai. The sons of Kohath: his son Aminadab, his son Korah, his son Aser, his son Elkanah, his son Abiasaph, his son Aser, his son Tahath, his son Uriel, his son Uzziah, and his son Shaul. The sons of Elkanah: Amasai, Alhimath, his son Elkanah, his son Zophai, his son Nahath, his son Eliab, his son Jeroham, and his son Elkanah. The sons of Samuel: Joel the firstborn, and Abijah the second oldest. The descendants of Merari: Mali, his son; Libni, his son; Shimei, his son Uzzah, his son Shemaiah, his son Hagiah, and his son Asaiah. These are the men David put in charge of music in the Lord's sanctuary after the ark was placed there. They performed music before the sanctuary of the meeting tent until Solomon built the Lord's temple in Jerusalem. They carried out their tasks according to regulations. These are the ones who served along with their sons: From the Kohathites, Heman the musician, son of Joel, son of Samuel, son of Elkanah, son of Jeroham, son of Eliel, son of Toa, son of Zuph, son of Elkanah, son of Mahath, son of Amasai, son of Elkanah, son of Joel, son of Azariah, son of Zephaniah, son of Tahath, son of Aser, son of Abiasaph, son of Korah, son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, son of Israel. Serving beside him was his fellow Levite, Asaph, son of Berechiah, son of Shemaiah, son of Michael, son of Basaiah, son of Malchijah, son of Ethni, son of Zerah, son of Adiah, son of Ethan, son of Zimmah, son of Shimei, son of Jahath, son of Gershom, son of Levi. Serving beside them were their fellow Levites, the descendants of Merari, led by Ethan, son of Kishi, son of Abdi, son of Malach, son of Hashabiah, son of Amaziah, son of Hilkiah, son of Amzi, son of Bani, son of Shemer, son of Mali, son of Mushi, son of Merari, son of Levi. The rest of their fellow Levites were assigned to perform the remaining tasks at God's sanctuary. But Aaron and his descendants offered sacrifices on the altar for burnt offerings, and on the altar for incense, as they had been assigned to do in the most holy sanctuary. They made atonement for Israel, just as God's servant Moses had ordered. These were the descendants of Aaron, his son Eleazar, his son Phinehas, his son Abishua, his son Buki, his son Uzi, his son Zerahiah, his son Meraioth, his son Amariah, his son Ahitub, his son Zadok, and his son Ahimaaz. These were the areas where Aaron's descendants lived. The following belonged to the Kohathite clan, for they received the first allotment. They were allotted to Hebron in the territory of Judah, as well as its surrounding pasture lands. But the city's land and nearby towns were allotted to Caleb, son of Jephunneh. The descendants of Aaron were also allotted as cities of refuge, Hebron, Libnah, and its pasture lands, Jader, Eshtemoa, and its pasture lands, Hilez and its pasture lands, Deber and its pasture lands, Ashan and its pasture lands, and Beth Shemesh and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Benjamin, they were allotted Geba and its pasture lands, Elameth and its pasture lands, and Anatoth and its pasture lands. Their clans were allotted 13 cities in all. The rest of Kohath's descendants were allotted 10 cities in the territory of the half-tribe of Manasseh. The clans of Gershom's descendants received 13 cities within the territory of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Manasseh, and Bashan. The clans of Merari's descendants were allotted 12 cities within the territory of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So the Israelites gave to the Levites these cities and their pasture lands. They allotted these previously named cities from the territory of the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. The clans of Kohath's descendants also received territory within the tribe of Ephraim. They were allotted as cities of refuge, Shechem and its pasture lands, in the hill country of Ephraim, Gezer and its pasture lands, Jokmeam and its pasture lands, Beth-horon and its pasture lands, Aijalon and its pasture lands, and Gath-rimmon and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the half-tribe of Manasseh, the rest of Kohath's descendants received Aner and its pasture lands, and Bileam and its pasture lands. The following belonged to Gershom's descendants, within the territory of the half-tribe of Manasseh: Golan and Bashan and its pasture lands, and Asheroth and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Issachar, Kedesh and its pasture lands, Daberath and its pasture lands, Ramoth and its pasture lands, and Anam and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Asher, Mashal and its pasture lands, Abdon and its pasture lands, Hukok and its pasture lands, and Rehob and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Naphtali, Kedesh in Galilee and its pasture lands, Heman and its pasture lands, and Kirithaim and its pasture lands. The following belonged to the rest of Merari's descendants, within the territory of the tribe of Zebulun: Rimono and its pasture lands, and Tabor and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Reuben across the Jordan River east of Jericho, Bezer in the desert and its pasture lands, Jaza and its pasture lands, Kedemoth and its pasture lands, and Mephath and its pasture lands. Within the territory of the tribe of Gad, Ramoth and Gilead and its pasture lands, Mahanaim and its pasturelands, Heshbon and its pasturelands, and Jazer and its pasturelands. Whew. Yeah, so what do we have here? In chapter 5, we have the descendants of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh combining their forces into an army and attacking the Hagrites, Jeter, Naphish, and Nodab, and receiving divine help in doing so, and despoiling their enemies to a crazy extent. They took captive 100,000 people, which is not a small amount. Given that these captives outnumbered them 2 to 1. So how large was the army that they despoiled? And you can see why they won, because they cried out to God in chapter 5, verse 20b. They cried out to God during the battle, and he responded to their prayers because they trusted in him. So, very important to do. Reminds me of Hebrews, 11:6. Without faith it is impossible to please God, for he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Yeah, and here we have God being diligently sought by the descendants of Israel, and indeed listening to and rewarding them with victory in battle here. And in contrast to that, you have in the end of chapter 5, starting from verse 23, the half-tribe of Manasseh settled in the land. They had various leaders, but they were unfaithful, in verse 25, to the God of their ancestors, and worshipped instead the gods of the native peoples, whom God had destroyed before them. The half-tribe of Manasseh, which you have from Jacob, you have Joseph, and then under you have Manasseh and Ephraim. And from Manasseh, you have, if you see this as the Jordan River, Manasseh on both sides of that. And it sounds as though those on the eastern side of the Jordan were unfaithful to God, and God stirred up the Assyrians, in particular this King Tiglath-Pileser, and they took away the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, which I think that's all those who settled on the far side of the Jordan. It's very sad, because initially when they were going into the Promised Land, they saw the land to the east of the Jordan and said it was good as far as raising cattle, and so they decided that their inheritance fell on the eastern side of the Jordan. Nevertheless, they were admonished to help their brothers cross over the Jordan and help them militarily take over the rest of the land of Canaan here on the west side of the Jordan. And they did so. And you had them setting up this altar near the Jordan, and it was to serve as a reminder between the children of Israel on the western side of the Jordan and their children on the east, that they too also had a portion of the God of Israel. yet, despite that, they went and served other gods and weren't faithful. Very sad. Then in chapter 6 here, we have the sons of Levi, which for the I guess the sons of Aaron here, or let me see. Yeah, it must have been the sons of Aaron. I was struck that there was so many repeating names. Like Azariah here appears at least like 3 times. And Amariah. Maybe these are like parallel paths, but I guess from how it's written, it sounds like it's following a singular strand. I don't know as far as that goes. But let me see. What does the name Azariah mean? Azariah means Jehovah has helped. So, a fitting name for a son of Aaron, the high priest. There's an awful lot of Azariahs. I want to say, just looking in Strong's here real quick, there's like 20 different Azariahs. Let me see. What are some other repeated? Zadok. What does his name mean? Righteous. Fitting name for a priest as well. Not as many of those. Some 8, I suppose. And some Amariahs here. With his name meaning, well, with Yah at the end, I imagine some form of Jehovah. Amariah is Jehovah speaks, or Yahoo has promised. Interesting. Well, yeah, not sure necessarily what else to glean from this. I guess, for those who don't know, you have Jacob, that is Israel, and his son Levi. And from Levi, they were ordained, anointed, to work in the temple complex, I guess the tabernacle at the time, where you have divisions of labor based on genealogy. So one family was in charge of loading stuff on the carts, and another was to set up and take down the tent, and another was to, I guess, wrap all the well, I feel like wrapping the stuff was part of Aaron's job. Nevertheless, you have kind of this division of labor within Levi for the work of the tabernacle. And in particular, you have a certain descendant of Levi, that is Aaron, from which the high priests, the priests come. And these priests could perform like the sacrifices, and in particular go into the tabernacle one time a year at the Day of Atonement. Yeah. Let me see. There was one other thing. Oh, yeah. There was, I guess, the dispersion of the sons of Levi here amidst the various colonies of the Israelites, and the repeated mention of the pasture lands being included in that group, in those offerings, rather. Okay, let's see what Guzik has to say. For they cried out to God in the battle. As these men of God did what God called them to do, they trusted in him in the midst of the battle. Because they put their trust in him, God delivered them in the battle. Trap on, for they cried to God in battle. So did Jabez, Jehoshaphat, the thundering legion, the late king of Sweden, whose prayer before the great battle of Lutzen, where he fell, was, Jesus, vouchsafe this day to be my strong helper, and give me courage to fight for the honor of thy name. In prayer alone he held the surest piece of his whole armor. Also, 100,000 of their men, for many fell dead because the war was God's. This describes the unique wars of judgment God called Israel to bring against the Canaanites when they came into the Promised Land. This was a war of extermination as to the political state of the people, which nothing could justify, but a special direction of God. In this he could never give against any, unless the cup of their iniquity had been full. The Hagrites were full of idolatry. From 1 Chronicles 5:25. And they acted treacherously against the God of their fathers and played the harlot after the gods of the people of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. Talking about the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh there, and their falling away from God, but demonstrating that they were doing what the native peoples of the land, the Canaanites before them, had done, and that was fallen into this massive idolatry. And not just that, though that is certainly bad in and of itself, but you also have all of the other grievances listed against them as part of, I'm not even sure where it's necessarily at. But God says to Israel, it's not because that you're especially great that you're getting this land, but because the peoples before you have acted so wickedly. And so God was using the Israelites as a form of divine punishment against the peoples of the land. And it's only secondarily that they get to inhabit the land, contingent on the fact that they themselves don't engage in the same things that the peoples of the land before them were doing. Okay, carrying on. They were mighty men of valor, famous men, and heads of their fathers' houses. These original settlers of the eastern tribe of Manasseh were godly and bold men. Their desire to settle east of the Jordan River did not reflect an ungodly desire on their part. And they were unfaithful to the God of their fathers, and played the harlot after the gods of the peoples of the land. Despite the good start of the eastern tribe of Manasseh, this is how they ended up. Their distance from the people of Israel in general, and the spiritual life of the nation in particular, seemed to weaken their devotion to God and strengthen their attraction to the gods of the peoples of the land. And that was the warning that God gave the people of Israel, was that they were to be a holy people, set apart from the nations around them, and not intermarry and associate with those of the surrounding nations. And if they did, they would be smoke in their eyes and type thing, where they would draw the Israelites' hearts after the gods that they're worshiping. The remaining verses of chapter 5 describe an early joint military campaign in which God rewarded their faith and their prayers with a great victory over the Ishmaelites and their later deportation to Assyria as the result of a collective apostasy from pain. Chapter 6. The sons of Levi were. This chapter describes the descendants of Levi and of Aaron. The entire tribe of Levi had a special place in Israel, given over to the service of God generally. Within the tribe of Levi was a special priestly family descended from Aaron. All priests were therefore Levites, but not all Levites were priests. It has been well remarked that the genealogy of Levi is given here more ample and correct than that of any of the others, and this is perhaps an additional proof that the author was a priest, felt much for the priesthood, and took care to give the genealogy of the Levitical and priestly families from the most correct tables, for with such tables we may presume he was intimately acquainted, from Clark. Yeah, and I would also say that if you look at the book of Ezra, I think it's in Ezra, it might be in Nehemiah, one of the big questions was who's going to serve in the temple. And so it was really important that they have sons of Levi, and in particular sons of Aaron, to serve there. So getting an accurate genealogy was important in that regard. As previously seen, Simeon and Levi were both cursed to be scattered because of their massacre of the men of Shechem. God did, in fact, both divide the tribes of Simeon and Levi and scatter them among Israel. Yet the way it happened for each tribe was different. The tribe of Simeon, because of their lack of faithfulness, was effectively dissolved as a tribe and was absorbed into the tribal areas of Judah. The tribe of Levi was also scattered, but because of the faithfulness of this tribe during the rebellion of the golden calf, the tribe was scattered as a blessing throughout the whole nation of Israel. Both were scattered, but one as a blessing and the other as a curse. Yeah, during the golden calf incident, you have Moses asking, "Who is for the Lord?" And the sons of Levi gathered and executed judgment against their fellow Israelites during the incident of the golden calf. In the temple that Solomon built in Jerusalem, so called to distinguish it from the second temple, which was built, or in building when these books were written, from Poole. When the Lord carried Judah and Jerusalem into captivity by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. According to pattern, the inspired historian saw the hand of God even in the great tragedy that still afflicted Judah at the time of writing Chronicles. It was not the Babylonian Empire that carried Judah and Jerusalem into captivity, but it was the Lord. Yeah. Ultimately, they didn't succeed because they didn't trust in the Lord. Whom David appointed over the service of song in the house of the Lord after the ark came to rest. The dramatic entry of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem is described in both 2 Samuel 6 and 1 Chronicles 15 through 16. The fact that David appointed these men over the service of song shows that the musical worship of God is important. It is worthy of attention and should be organized. In fact, it is specifically said they served in their office according to their order. It could perhaps be said that the artistic temperament resists organization, and it is certainly possible to be too ordered and too rigid, refusing to allow proper flexibility in the Holy Spirit. Nevertheless, organization and order remain part of a good music ministry. They were ministering with music. Their ministry was music. It was sacred service before the Lord, worthy of their dedication and hard work. Heman, the singer. This man is mentioned several times in connection with temple worship in the days of David and Solomon. He was an important part of the ceremonies connected with bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem and the dedication of the temple. Psalm 88 is attributed to Heman, a psalm of the sons of Korah to the chief musician, set to Mahalath Leanoth, a contemplation, that is, maskil, of Heman the Ezrahite. Psalm 88 shows us a man well acquainted with sorrow and trouble. For my soul is full of troubles. I am like a man who has no strength. Your wrath lies heavy upon me. Some of the sweetest songs come from the heaviest sorrow. Psalm 88 also shows us a man who could take his grief to the Lord. But to you I have cried out, O Lord, and in the morning my prayer comes before you. It is not a confident or triumphant psalm, but the undercurrent of trust and refuge in God runs through the song of sorrow. Yeah. Who have I in heaven but you, Lord? Type thing. And it's good to trust in the Lord in times of sorrow. And his brother Asaph, who stood at the right hand, partnered with Heman the singer, was Asaph, making for one of the great worship-leading combinations in history. This is the first mention of Asaph in the Bible. The Asaph listed in 2 Kings 18:18 and 18:37 is a different man. The Asaph mentioned here was a man of wide and long-lasting influence among God's people. 1 Chronicles 15:17 through 19 mentions Asaph as a fellow singer with Heman and Ethan. 1 Chronicles 16:5 describes Asaph as the chief at the ceremony bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. 1 Chronicles 16:7 says that David delivered a psalm to Asaph and his brethren at the ceremony. Apparently, David wrote the psalm, and Asaph and his brethren performed it. 1 Chronicles 16:37 says that Asaph was left with the responsibility to daily minister before the Ark of the Covenant when it was brought into Jerusalem in David's time. And 1 Chronicles 25:6 says that Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman served in music under the authority of King David. 2 Chronicles 20:14 and 29:13 indicates that the influence of Asaph lasted far beyond his death, in that future worship leaders and musicians were known as the sons of Asaph, even to the days of Ezra. 12 psalms are attributed to Asaph. Appointed to every kind of service of the tabernacle of the house of God, the Levites served God in almost every conceivable way, both practical and spiritual. Every kind of service is important and precious to God. But Aaron and his sons offered sacrifices on the altar. The priesthood descended from Aaron, and to Aaron only. He, his sons, and their descendants were the only ones authorized to offer sacrifices on the altar and to make atonement for Israel. Only an authorized priesthood could make atonement. Though Jesus was not descended from Aaron, he was nevertheless an authorized priest according to the order of Melchizedek, not Aaron, from Hebrews 7. Yeah, and Hebrews goes on to say that whenever there's a change of the law, there needs to be a change of the priesthood. Now, these are the sons of Aaron. Not listed are the two disobedient sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, who were judged for bringing a strange fire of corrupt worship to the altar. Now these are their dwelling places throughout their settlements. According to Numbers 18, verses 20 through 24, the tribe of Levi had no province of land, as the other tribes did. Their inheritance was the Lord himself, and the tithes that the people of God brought to them. They gave them Hebron in the land of Judah with its surrounding common lands. After this pattern, the Levites were sprinkled throughout the land of Israel by giving them cities in the different tribal provinces, cities together with surrounding common lands. Okay, well, that's that. I think for the Christian believer, we too are also called to be a holy priesthood, set apart for God, similar to how you have the Aaronic priesthood here with their service and their scattering throughout the land. And I think the pictures of the service of Levi and Aaron are meant to kind of inspire us as to the service we should be performing today. Not that we have to perform like sacrifices and such, but the same sorts of things of like caring for the temple of God, that is the body of believers, ministering to them and singing songs and in general serving the Lord. So let's not neglect that. Anywho, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.